Thank you, Dr. Jason, for this comprehensive introduction, which presents us why the strategy needs updating and how it may be carried out. We will keep the contracting parties and other relevant parties posted throughout the revision process. After listening to all these presentations, you may have questions or you want to request clarifications. And it is now the time for participants to take the floor by pressing the request to speak button on your screen. I will show you the presentation PowerPoint, which might help you better understand how to do that. Just a moment. Okay, I'm sorry. So take a little time. So you may request the floor by pressing the request to speak button and ask your question. I will give the floor to you one by one within 30 minutes. Once the floor has been granted, I will invite you to, by saying your name, to speak. Please press the microphone at the center button of the screen. And if you want to turn on your camera, you may also press the camera button beside. When your mic and the camera is on, the color of the button will turn to blue. When asking questions, please indicate which speaker the question is for so we can provide more tailored answers. Please be concise in your questions. Should the time allow, we will also address the questions raised during the webinar through the chat, while the rest of the unanswered questions will be addressed on a follow-up Q&A document to be disseminated to you shortly after this event. So if you have any questions now or you want to take the floor, you may press the button and I will give out the floor one by one. Thank you. So I see several participants already raised the hand. So first, Reda Banima, please, you have the floor. Please press on the...
Bonjour. Bonjour. Vous m'entendez?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please continue.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to participate today to this webinar. My name is Radha Benhima. I'm head of the Preservation and Biological Conservation. I shall go. No. Go ahead. Yes, oui, s'il vous plaît. We prefer that you go on, please. Just go on. Ask the speaker to just go on. He doesn't have to stop. It's simultaneous interpreting. So I go on. I have some questions. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having organized this webinar. Then I would like to thank the speakers for their concise and pertinent presentations. I have a few questions addressed to the representatives of KSP and to the Secretariat of the BW Ballast Water Management. So first question is, today, after a Starak presentation on the monitoring program, on the implementation of the Convention on Ballast Water, at this point, the question is there a link between the implementation of the Convention on ballast waters, and the program KIMA, especially regarding common indicators. This is my first question. My second question is addressed to the Secretary of the Convention. The question is there any strategic plan or a framework for the Convention? Third point is a call that I'm addressing to the Secretariat of the Convention on Ballast Waters. The Convention is not very well known in Morocco, for example. Not very well known in Morocco, for example. And based on this statement, it would be opportune to support the countries, especially developing countries, in order, through training, capacity building programs, to simplify and sensitize all the stakeholders and all the people involved, research institutes, NGOs, sensitize all these on the implementation of the convention in order to ensure its effective implementation. Thank you again for having organized this webinar.
If it's okay, I will leave the questions to our colleagues from the IMO to answer. Megan or Theo, if you have the answer, you can take the floor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I will do my best to answer the second and third parts of that question. I believe the first one was addressed to SPARAC. I'll start with the third question about country support in Morocco through IMO's ITCP, or Integrated Technical Cooperation Program, which this workshop is done through ITCP. The ITCP program is meant to provide that support to countries that you mentioned. And so it's our hope, of course, that we will do a 3-day workshop in the future in person. But for any countries that wish to request specific training, we encourage you to log on to GESIS and make that request through the country maritime profile. For example, a national workshop on ballast water management. As far as the second question regarding any strategic plan or framework for the convention, there's the regional strategic plan, of course, but that's more of a question, not for the IMO Secretariat, but for the regional partners. So I will hand over the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, for the responses. And I would like to invite Ms. Gavino to respond to the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question, for these 3 questions. For the last question, just to follow on what was indicated by IMO. In terms of programming activities, this is done within the program of work of definition of the program of work of REMPEC. We will early next year be submitting a request to contracting parties to provide input to define the next program of work. So I invite also you to liaise with the focal points of your country to ensure that the request of assistance, if required, is shared through this process. I also invite the focal points when we will be disseminating the next strategy for the next 10 years to look into this issue of raising awareness on the ballast water management. Although I can already indicate that this matter is already included in the draft that we're preparing. I'm also suggesting to share the material which has been delivered today and will be shared with you all through our website with other departments at national level to raise awareness on on this issue. And regarding the link between the Barcelona Convention, its common indicator, IMAP, and the Ballast Water Management Convention, I'd like to highlight the fact that we're currently revising, together with SPARAC, the guides and fact sheet related to the Common Indicator 6, which was mentioned during the presentation of SPARAC, and the matter will be discussed at the next common meeting, which is scheduled at the end of October this year, and therefore the link is basically in the reporting procedures, and this common indicator will be updating accordingly. So I hope this clarify this point, and I suggest to pass to the next question, and eventually, if there is further question, to use the messaging or follow-up required on those questions, to use the messaging system for participants to allow us to follow up after the meeting. But let's leave other participants the chance to raise a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabino, for the responses. And if there's no further questions to this part, I will move to the next participants who have requested the floor. I think that's Ronan Borrell. If you want, you may take the floor now. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for organizing the webinar. I'm not entirely sure who I'm asking this question. I work with Professor Silayos at Odyssey. I hope for those of you who were not acquainted with the project, you understand what a powerful tool it is and is developing as one, and what it can contribute to the convention. My question is aimed at understanding the magnitude of what the Ballast Water Convention is addressing in the Mediterranean region. For example, how many ports are there? How many vessels are moving around the Mediterranean? How many ports waters have been surveyed? How many ships were required to provide information about the ballast water? How many applications for exemptions? So if anyone out there can help with understanding what we are up against with this convention, I would very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Rana. And I will leave the question to Frank Lors, the technical officer of RAMPAC, to answer this question. Thank you. Frank, you may take the floor if you want.
Yes, thank you, Wentao. I'm not sure I have the answers to this question, because the Ballast Water Management Convention is a global convention, so it applies across the board. Shipping is also a global activity, so it would be quite difficult to provide precise answers to the question. As to how many areas are applying exemptions, I am not aware of any in the Mediterranean, and I think perhaps the IMO Secretariat might be in a better position to answer that part, because exemptions have to be reported to the Secretariat of the Convention. But as far as RENPEC is concerned or aware, we are not aware of any such exemption. We know that there has been some interest from a number of countries to look into the same risk area concept and possibly applying exemptions between specific ports, but there has not been key developments in that respect at the Mediterranean level. Now, there is perhaps an opportunity with the update of the Mediterranean strategy and its action plan to look further into that issue, also taking into account the very useful experience that the ELCOM has had on that aspect, and which was presented to us today. So far that is the answer I can provide. Thank you, Wendell and participants.
Thank you very much for the responses, Frank. And I would like to ask our colleagues from the IMO if you have anything to add. You may take the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Theo from the IMO Secretariat from London. Yes, as Frank said, it's virtually impossible to answer the questions that were asked. The kind of data that were asked about are not available. One thing, the only thing that I can answer is the last part of the question, which asks about exemptions. At the moment, as things stand, as far as IMO Secretariat, as far as the IMO has been notified, there have been 2 exemptions granted to ships by Spain, but they were both temporary. One of them was about 3 months from March until June of this year. It has already expired. And there is one which is currently active. Actually, I can see that it's a very recent one. It was granted last week, and it's valid until the end of this year. But one thing that is interesting to note is that these exemptions are both very localized. I mean, the exemption that is active at the moment is about a ship operating only in the Bay of Gibraltar. And that is not really the intent of exemptions under the convention. As Megan explained, the conventions are meant to be anything that the convention, anything in the convention is applicable to international shipping, not domestic. So exemptions are meant to be granted for ships operating internationally between 2 or more ports of 2 or more countries. So the exemption that was granted by Spain to a ship operating exclusively within Spanish waters actually is not in the scope of the convention. There is no need to grant an exemption like that. So I hope this is clear as well. But not to move too far away from the question and just keep to the scope of the question, the simple answer is that there have been 2 exemptions granted so far within by Mediterranean countries, and they were both by Spain, but they were both very limited, both chronologically but also geographically, and that's all we have at the moment in terms of exemptions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention, Theo. And now I would like to go on the floor to Rani Amir. You may ask the question now. You have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon to all. First of all, I would like to really thank RENPEC staff and for the initiative. I think it's very useful. We should do that more on many issues since the COVID-19 is not going to vanish soon. So we need to practice this excellent platform. And also all the presenters. It was very educating. I have a specific question to Professor Silias as regards the Odyssey. What does it take to one country, authority, to enter and have and have the priceless information that you gathered under this platform? What should be done? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And Professor Cesario, you may take the floor if you have the answer. Thank you. Professor, you may take the floor now. Okay, sorry, I forgot to give you the floor. Yes, please, you can speak now. Thank you.
Yes, as explained, well, thank you firstly for this question. I have to say that this database is completely open and free because it relies to data provided by external data sources, but also we are operating in the environmental framework, which in Horizon demands that we are open and freely available all our data to anyone who would like really to access these data sets. So in the next period, within the next months, we're going to launch the platform openly and freely available to our users. Eventually, the services and the products that we will provide through this data will be restricted to some advanced users. So this is what we are trying really to focus, but the broad spectrum of data sets will be openly available to anyone. I hope this answered your question.
Thank you, Professor, for the responses. So I will now give the floor to Ristiliantis. I'm sorry if I pronounced the wrong name wrongly. You may have the floor if you want to ask a question now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Cyprus. Thank you for the very detailed and targeted seminar. I have a couple of questions, and I'm referring mostly to the presentation made by Dr. Gilson. What is, and I'm trying to be short and specific, what is the definition of same location which is referred to in regulation A-3.5 of the Annex to the Convention, because we have cases where ships are connecting two islands, and we would like to know, on a different state, of course, and we would like to know how much distance we can calculate in order to set the ship in such a category. And my second question is, when a risk assessment is prepared according to the G7 guidelines, is that a ship specific, or it might be a generic for a particular area which could be used by ships operating solely on that area? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I would invite Theo, our colleague from IMO, to answer the question. Thank you.
Actually, Wentao, I'm going to take that, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so excellent question about the definition of same location. There actually is not a definition of that, which means that it's up to the administration to determine what that means. This is a point that has been under discussion previously, but there is no agreed definition. So it's up to the administration to determine what same location means in your case. As for the risk assessment, I want to stress that the exemption is for a specific ship, but the risk assessment is more likely to be done for a given location. But again, that exemption would only apply to a specific ship. I hope this answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer, Megan. And I will now give floor to Naou Rubayer from Maroc. I will give the floor now. And you can turn on the microphone and ask the question now. Thank you.
Vous m'entendez? Bonjour à tous.
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Merci. Je suis Nawel Zouber, le correspondant gouvernemental. Je remercie les différents intervenants pour leur présentation claire et très riche en informations. Je remercie le REMPEC et l'OMI d'avoir organisé ce webinaire. Pour le Maroc, nous avons adhéré à la Convention depuis 2015. Nous avons assisté à des ateliers régionaux et nous avons également organisé des ateliers nationaux de formation et de sensibilisation. Mais nous n'avons pas encore élaboré notre stratégie nationale de gestion des eaux de ballast. Évidemment, il y a des prérequis à l'élaboration de cette stratégie nationale. Et donc, nous...
Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry. I think there's something wrong with the interpretation.
Et donc, nous souhaitons...
Sorry to interrupt, madam. Yes, I would like to inform the participants, if you cannot hear the English translation, please switch to the French one. There's something wrong with the interpretation panel. Thank you.
Est-ce que c'est bon?
Yes, madam, you may continue. Thank you. Sorry for that.
D'accord. D'accord, donc j'attends un peu.
Please continue. Thank you.
D'accord, donc je disais qu'il y a des prérequis à l'élaboration de cette stratégie nationale. Et donc, nous souhaitons bien avoir de l'assistance pour l'élaboration.
To benefit from your assistance so as to establish national inventories for those invasive species in the Mediterranean Sea and region, and in the Atlantic region. We would like to establish databases concerning those species and elaborate and define the risks associated to the transportation and to the transmission of those species. And thank you. Merci pour la question. J'aimerais inviter de nouveau, l'interprète n'est pas sur le bon canal. S'il vous plaît, l'interprète doit changer le canal. J'aimerais demander à Monsieur Kat.
Bonjour Madame Zoubaïr, merci pour cette question et je vous remercie. Je change le canal d'interprétation.
Changing his interpretation channel. It's true that we should take notice of your request for assistance in this field. And
de travail du REMPEC, on prendra de nouveau contact avec vous et on vous invitera à faire cette demande dans le contexte de la préparation du programme de travail du biennium suivant. Et on pourra également envisager, si les ressources le permettent, peut-être d'initier cette activité avant.
So it all depends now on the means available before the end of next year. But we shall take note of all your requests for assistance, and I will let you know. I will do the follow-up and let you know what we will be doing subsequently regarding requests for risk evaluation and databases. I think that this is a topic that should be, in fact, addressed not only nationally, but also at the level of the whole region, especially for questions regarding exemptions, but also to address obligations of reporting on the convention. This is also a topic that was inscribed in the Mediterranean strategy on ballast waters for data collection and information collection in a system that would allow regionally to collect data on the whole region. So these are topics that are, in fact, always on standing and pending, and we will try to help you to pursue these efforts, because in the context of the revision of the national strategy, this is also something that needs to be considered in the future, in which you will also, during which you will also be called on to provide your comments once the strategy has been revised and made available and been sent to you. Thank you.
And we have one more questions from Khadija Samir. So I will give one for now. You may turn on the mic and ask a question now. Thank you. Khadija, you can turn on the mic and you can speak now. I have recorded the floor. Okay, I guess we have lost Khadija. So, okay, I have a further question from Abir Abdelaziz. I will give one for now. You may turn on the mic and ask a question. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour, we can hear you.
Allô? Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui.
Oui, oui. Samir Kedira de la Tunisie. Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Vous m'entendez? Hello, everybody. I would like to thank RAMPAC and IMO for this seminar. I lost the sound, sorry. No sound.
Turn off and turn on the mic again to see whether we can hear you. Abir? Abir? I'm sorry, I think we have lost your... So I will pass the floor to the next participant. So we have a question from Mercedes de Juan, and I'm going to give you the floor. You can turn on the mic and ask question now. Thank you. Mercedes, the floor is yours. Thank you. Mercedes, can you hear us? You may take the floor if you want to ask the question. Thank you. Okay, I think we have lost her again, so I will give floor now again to Khadija Samir. You have the floor, Khadija. You may take the floor now. Thank you.
Allô, oui?
Non, c'est Khadira Samir.
Oui, Kedira Samir, vous m'écoutez?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is Khadira Samir. Can I talk now? Yes. I would like resume. My question is essentially about whether we need to, in principle, we need to have a clear idea of all the Mediterranean species. So we need to have a database about all the species in the Mediterranean in order to determine invasive species. And once we will have had an exhaustive view of this, what I request is will consultants, because it's interesting to have ideas about the ballast waters and so on and so forth. But can we calculate the cost of damage caused by these species on that or that region to see, well, that we have, in fact, been subjected to a degradation or to a loss in order to evaluate and to ask for sanctions if, for example, ballast waters have been discharged containing threatening species for the region.
Okay. I'm hearing my own voice, so I guess something wrong with that. I would like to invite first Atef to answer the questions relating to the influence of the NIS in the region, and I will give the floor to our colleagues in IMO to answer the sanction part. Thank you. So Atef, you may take the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Wantao. Je vais répondre en français. La question des espèces, s'il y a une...
I shall answer in French. If we have a database on the Mediterranean species, no. But we have a register that is being updated because our knowledge are being updated daily. But what we know is the distribution of species, geographic distribution of species. And we can have the origin of some species. We may qualify them as autochthonous or non-autochthonous in the Mediterranean. I hope I have answered your question. The other question regarding the economic impact, as far as I know, we didn't have an economic evaluation of the damage caused by invasive species, be it by ballast waters or by the intrusion other than via ballast waters. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. I will leave the floor to Megan or Theo. If you have the answers, you may take the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as sanctions go, that is entirely up to the administration to decide what value they wish to place on the sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you for the responses. And we have one last question, and I will give the floor to Abir Adelazi. I'm sorry, I think, well, he had just received the request, so I cannot run the floor. So we have no further question here, and we have just have one question through the messaging channel. Let me check it. okay, it's more like a message from Mercedes, the U1, mentioning to us that the port of Barcelona are conducting the port survey. So you may read the message also from the participant messaging channel.